When we hear the word doomsday, it's never something good, guys, right? Hi, everyone. Now, I have to tell you, unfortunately, that earthquakes are hammering the Doomsday Glacier. Sounds really dark, so what is it? And it is raising new fears right now, drastically. We can say that Antarctica's most feared ice giant is shuddering. Seismic sensors are picking up a surge of earthquakes while the iceberg is cracking. It's cracking, it's pivoting, and it's slamming back into the sea along the front of the Thwaites Glacier. This is a very vast outlet that is often named the Doomsday Glacier. So what implications will that have? Let's dive into this. The earthquakes are a warning. They are, guys. Something's happening, we can say, at the bottom of the world. It's not subtle, it's not theoretical, and it's not happening someday. It's happening right now. Earthquakes are repeatedly striking one of the most important glaciers on Earth. A glacier that scientists and other people openly call the Doomsday Glacier. We're not talking about tectonic earthquakes, we're not talking about volcanoes here, but we're talking about seismic shocks that are caused by the iceberg itself. It's violently breaking apart. And the more the scientists look at the data that they're getting, guys, the more uncomfortable the whole picture becomes. And guys, before I tell you that picture, can you do me a favor? It doesn't cost you anything. Please give this video an early like and a hype. Thank you so much. So the glacier there, it's not just melting, it's doing something else. It's shuddering. It's called the Thwaites Glacier and it sits in West Antarctica and it's huge. It has roughly the size of Florida. Not as warm as Florida, icy cold, but that big. And of course we can say that it acts like a massive cork in a bottle. That's what this glacier does. It holds back enormous volumes of inland ice. So if Thwaites Glacier destabilizes completely, it doesn't just raise the sea levels a little, it would unlock the West Antarctic Ice Sheet. And that would change coastlines worldwide. So this is very important what is going on there. So here's what scientists have just confirmed. They were using seismic instruments that they have placed directly all over the Antarctic continent, and they have detected hundreds of ice-generated earthquakes over the past decades already. So more than 360 distinct events. That's a lot if we're not talking about any tectonic earthquakes or volcanic earthquakes. Many of these 360 earthquakes are concentrated right at the front of the Thwaites Glacier, where the ice is meeting with the ocean. And these are not normal earthquakes. They happen when enormous icebergs, we can say, break free. They rotate and they collide with the glacier front, and then they slam into the seafloor. And then, of course, they're releasing seismic energy that is powerful enough to be detected hundreds of miles or kilometers away. In other words, the iceberg is breaking itself apart with force, breaking chunks off, colliding into itself, breaking more chunks off. And again, you can imagine why this matters so much, because the glaciers are supposed to carve icebergs. That part is normal. We know that. What is not normal right now is the frequency, it's the energy, and the repetition of these events that we're seeing right now. So it's not a single collapse, it's not a seasonal pulse, it's a persistent pattern of structural failure. Everything fails eventually. So This is particularly alarming. What makes it so particularly alarming? These glacial earthquakes are happening where the warm ocean water is already eroding the glacier from down below. So Thwaites sits on bedrock that basically is sloping downwards inland. That is basically a configuration that we know as marine ice sheet instability. So that says a lot already. So once retreat of the glacier starts, the physics are working against the glacier. So the grounding line basically is pulling back, and more ice then becomes buoyant, is more exposed then, more fractures open, and the calving accelerates. And now, on top of that, basically, the glacier is generating its own seismic stress for itself. And this is not passive melting. This is mechanical collapse in slow motion. This is what's happening with the Doomsday Glacier. And the scientists are emphasizing something critical here. These are not signs, let's make that clear, of an immediate overnight collapse that might then cause the monster tsunami or something like this. But there are signs that the glacier is entering, we can say, a new physical regime, one where like the fracturing, the calving, and the instability reinforce each other. It's like, well, as an example, if you're bending a metal beam, at first nothing happens, then tiny cracks form, then the cracks are growing, and eventually the structure fails suddenly. And the earthquakes are the cracks that are speaking. This is true with other events as well. If we are thinking about Campi Flegrei, the crust is cracking of that supervolcano in Naples. That is creating earthquakes. If you're interested in that, lots of stuff is in the end screen, by the way. So, but guys, there is another layer to this that most headlines and reports are missing. Of course, I am not, because I'm on the pulse of the earth for you guys. So that's why, please subscribe, click the hype and like button. These glacial earthquakes occur at very low frequencies, which means traditional global earthquake monitoring systems often overlook them, or they don't see them. So for years, this activity was happening, it was going on, but it was basically invisible. Nobody knew about it. Only when researchers were out there focusing directly on Antarctica, the pattern did emerge. They found it. And that raises the unsettling question. How long has this been happening without us knowing, noticing? How far along is this? And here is where the Doomsday nickname, what can we say? I would say stops being super dramatic and starts being precise. What does that mean? Doesn't make it better. So if the Thwaites collapses entirely, if the whole glacier collapses, global sea level would eventually rise by more than 0.5 meters from this glacier alone. But the real danger is what comes after, because this, I mentioned it, this Doomsday Glacier acts as a buttress for surrounding ice basins. It holds them back. So lose it, and multiple glaciers begin accelerating towards the ocean. That's how you get like several feet and feet, meters and meters, not centimeters, of long-term sea level rise. This is what will cause that. Not tomorrow, not next year, but once triggered, irreversible for human timescales. That's a fact. So the scientists right now are very careful with their words. They're not saying collapse is imminent, but they are saying something just as serious. They say the glacier is no longer stable in the way it was a generation ago. It has lost stability. It's responding dynamically, mechanically to the warming oceans. And now we can hear it doing so by listening to its cracking, by listening to these earthquakes. I mean, think about this. For like most of human history, ice was silent, right? It comes in circles on our world. Like we have ice ages, we have warming periods, we have ice ages, right? But we haven't experienced an ice age yet, but many say it's in the works, it's coming. So, but for most of our history, the ice was silent. Now it's producing earthquakes all of a sudden, right? That alone tells you how far the system is along, how far it has been pushed right now. So what happens next? Well, the researchers are now using these glacial earthquake activity basically as a diagnostic tool, basically a way to monitor the stress of the iceberg, the fracture, and the calving behavior in real time. And every seismic pulse is a data point. They're very experienced with stuff like this because they're doing this with volcanoes, with fault lines, stuff like this. So every quake tells us a story about how the ice is failing. And that data is then being fed directly into like sea level rise models. And we can say that the window of uncertainty is kind of narrowing with the more data that we're getting. And well, I'm giving you a sober conclusion. I would say the Doomsday Glacier is not suddenly collapsing tomorrow, but it's no longer quietly melting. It's actively breaking. And once a glacier this large, the size of Florida, begins to fracture dynamically, the system does not simply return to equilibrium. It moves forward slowly, relentlessly, until we can say gravity is finishing the job. That's what it is. So don't panic. It's about understanding where we actually are and where the planet's boundaries are with the stuff that's happening here. And the Doomsday Glacier is telling us through the earthquakes that one of these boundaries is being tested right now. So if you want to understand the future of coastlines, oceans, global stability, this is one of the most important places on Earth actually to watch, to look, to observe. Because when the ice starts shaking the ground beneath, that's a language that is spoken clearly, right? It's not whispering anymore. So we better prepare. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to know what's going up above us or below us, hey, subscribe and check out the videos in the end screen. There's interesting stuff that I have chosen for you, or go to my channel start page, go on videos, go on recent videos. There you see what's going on. I'm releasing one video at least per day for you guys. So I hope to see you again very, very soon, and maybe in a second if you click here. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.